Thank you very much that I can be here tonight. As I was introduced, my name is Lea Schönfelder. I'm game designer at Ustwo Games. And tonight I'm going to talk about what our players mean to us. So a quick introduction. This is a team, Ustwo Games. We evolved out of a bigger company, UI UX company, Ustwo London, based in central London. Ustwo Games is now a team of about 16 people, and we just moved into our new studio in South London. But it's important still for us as a games company to maintain the strong connection to our mother company, the UX and design focused Ustwo studio. A bit about the background of myself. I'm an artist and game designer. I work on independent games like Perfect Woman, a picture of which you see here. It's a dancing game for the Kinect, but also worked in free-to-play games, for example, at Flare Games, who published Dawn of Steel. You see a picture of that on the right. But since last year, I have the privilege at Ustwo Games to work within a team that, like me, believes that good products also become the most successful ones. Within my talk, I will refer a lot to the game Monument Valley that was just introduced by Caroline. That's Ustwo's most successful game. It's an easy puzzle game that was released in 2014 and downloaded over 50 million times since. And I brought a quick video for you to get an impression of what it's about. So as you just have seen, you guide this little white-hatted princess, Ida, through a world of architecture with easy puzzle solving, and everything is inspired by M.C. Escher's drawings of impossible geometry. Monument Valley won a lot of awards, including the Apple Design Award in 2014. Frank Underwood played it in House of Cards, so maybe some of you have seen that show. And the famous game designer Tim Schafer referred to Monument Valley as the most elegant game he's ever played. So the question is, how do you design elegance? I am going to take you through the design process at Ustwo Games using the example of Monument Valley. So as many of you who work in design might also do, we apply an iterative process to our daily work. So that means at the beginning we have an idea and design that we implement, in our case in Unity, which is a pretty widespread games engine that we work in as well. We then immediately test everything that we do on our users or potential users. This user testing phase obviously is just watching and identifying problems. And in the third phase, you have the evaluation, where you think about how the experience can be improved, what went well, what might not have gone so well since. But our players are of absolute importance to us. Nothing will get into a game if it hasn't been validated by our testers beforehand. So to illustrate that design process a bit more in depth, I'm going to talk about a typical level design process using the example of Monument Valley again. There are 3 phases of level design, and we do user tests at each stage with different users to answer different questions that we have. I'm going to explain to you how that works now. So the first phase is we create a white box level in Unity that's the first idea, quick and easy and dirty. It can look something like you see on the right. What we want to know at this stage of the process is, do the mechanics work at all of our puzzle ideas? Can I break the level at some point? And testers that we have at this stage can even be ourselves. Like, it never hurts to play your game yourself, right? You usually already get a lot of information out of that, but then later on also team members. So oftentimes at this stage we don't test on device, but we test in the computer. That means that people have to know the systems and have to know the general rules of the game. So that's why we can't take it out to third-party people, but use ourselves and our team for it. And it's a legitimate thing to do, I think. So the result we want to, or the question we want to answer at the end of that step is, do we want to continue working on that level, or do we start with something new? Like, is it not good enough, or is it worth putting more work into it? Then the second phase is so we call it visually functional level. That means that if you want to test something on third-party people, usually you need visual hints so people can fully understand a puzzle or a level. In that case, you see the yellow path here that give you a hint where you can walk at all, like the gray tower in the back is a background that you usually don't interact with. So these kinds of references you need to test on, let's say, other designers. As I told you before, we worked within a big design company where designers had a basic knowledge about the project and also about design itself, but they weren't too involved in Monument Valley. And also friends and families who have already known or heard of the project, but are a bit further away than ourselves. And we want to know whether the difficulty is like right for the game or for the target audience, because family and friends are pretty much our target audience usually, whether that's compatible or not, and how long it takes them to finish the puzzle, or do they get stuck and can't finish the puzzle, for example. And then the third phase is a finish level. So finish level means you have all the graphics in, like you see here on the right. It also usually means that you have the sound in, although that is not like mandatory to test the level at this stage. Playtesters should now be our target audience. That is, if I haven't explained that yet, people who would download a new app on their smartphone and like to solve puzzles, but not specifically gamers. So we are aiming at basically everybody who owns a smartphone. And at this stage, we want to know, so usually when we test a level like this, we already put it to the spot within the game that we plan it to be for. So we want to find out whether the difficulty matches that spot within the dramaturgy or not. If it's a story level, like if we have story, obviously it also needs to be tested whether the story comes across or not, and if there are any major bugs that we haven't seen yet. But the most important thing that we need to find out at this point, and that will also determine whether something goes into the game or not, is, does it make the players smile? So at Ustwo Games, we want to surprise our players. We do make quantitative user tests. That means that we send the game out to cohorts of people and then get data about how much time they spend within a level and when they put the app down or any major bugs, that kind of thing. But really, the important part for us is qualitative user tests. That means that we sit with them. Usually, I mean, this is already a quite big crowd. Usually, it's really one-to-one talking, where we listen to the thought process of the players. We look at their thinking faces, and we see the little flickering in their eyes when they like something, or they make some noises like ah and wow. And that's what we're looking for, and that's what we need to have in each single level of the game. So I created this term to illustrate that further. I created that term wow versus flow. I'm not sure how many game designers we have in the audience, but usually a usual thing in games companies to do is to design a flow, a state of flow for the player. So let me explain that to you real quick. You have the player skill on the x-axis, and the further down you go, the higher skill the player is. Then you have the challenge of the game, and usually throughout the game, the player skill rises, like players become better at the game, and the challenge also rises, so they stay challenged. And if you, like the traditional thought is that if you stay within the yellow area, the game is too boring, people might not like it. If you are too hard with your game design, then people feel overwhelmed and put it down as well. So in contrast to that, at Ustwo Games, our aspiration is to create many little wow moments. So again, you have the player skill on the x-axis and the challenge on the y-axis, but the challenge is just not as important. Like if you want to be radical, maybe we don't even want to make a game, but a beautiful experience for the player. So of course, you have a little onboarding phase on the very beginning where people learn to basically interact with everything they see. But also later on, there can be new things. They don't have to be challenging, but the players should learn something new and be surprised by it. So as I hope I explained now, you need to have these magic moments in a level for it to go into the game. And it is a bit hard to denominate what such a magic moment is, but I try to filter out 3 factors that can be involved with it. I say can be because often it's a mixture, or it is one thing and not another, or it's all 3 of them. So first of all, it's definitely art that plays a big role. And by art, I obviously mean the graphics, but also sound design and storytelling. So in if you play Monument Valley, each screen that you see, it was designed as something that you can print out and hang on your wall as a piece of art. And usually people react like really positively to each screen, bringing you to a completely new world, right? The second aspect, and this is actually the aspect that I myself find most interesting of the game, is these moments of impossible geometry. You see like just this rotation that you saw on the right when you complete a Penrose. It shouldn't be possible, but it is possible. And all of a sudden you can experience how it is possible by walking Ida through it. And on the right, we have a similar moment of impossibility where you open that box, and from each side that you open it, something different will disappear. So you have this reuse of space. It is the Escher aspect of the game, right? So the third aspect that can create magical moments is the story of the game. As you can here read, this is the story is told by little poems that you encounter throughout the game. Here the storyteller says, sacred geometry was our pride, our downfall. So you have to play the game by yourself, but basically Ida tries to bring back sacred geometry that her people has stolen from the world, and is looking for forgiveness. The story was written by men, as you might notice. As I said before, I tried to crystallize what aspects could be in a magic moment. It is more or less impossible to me to describe what exactly it takes, because each magical moment is something unique and is something new to the player and something, you might say, handcrafted, right? So there is no recipe, no metrics that can create it. But I think that art, impossible geometry, and also the story all are things that contribute to it. Yeah, a great amount. To come back to the question of how you design elegance, whereas there was no recipe of how to create a Monument Valley level. It was a requirement for each level to have a magic moment. Designers built lots of levels and constantly talked to the potential players in order to create the most satisfying game. As a summary, I hope it came across that in the process of designing a game, we do not prioritize analytics or revenue, but we want to provide our players with constant surprise and joy, and I believe that this is the recipe for Ustwo Games' success. And I thank you very much. That was my talk.